weren't as good, but the no matter who you are, it's about.
If you blinked at Detroit Lions training camp this week, you missed something that is going to change how this defense gets talked about for the rest of the season. And that is not exaggeration for the sake of a headline. What happened on the practice fields in Allen Park was the kind of moment that makes grown men turn to a total stranger standing next to them and ask, "Did you just see that?" People were buzzing. Phones were out. Group chats were lighting up mid-practice. And at the center of it all was a name Lions fans need to burn into their memory right now, because by December, everybody in the league is going to know it. Derrick Moore. Before we dive in, welcome to Detroit Scope, the channel that lives and breathes this team. Camp representatives, roster battles, preseason chaos, all of it, we cover it here. And we need to say a massive thank you, because we just crossed 350 subscribers. That milestone means everything to a channel this size, and we are not stopping there. We are chasing 500 next, and if you have not hit that subscribe button yet, now is the time. It costs nothing, it takes 2 seconds, and it genuinely fuels everything we do here. Now let's get into why Derrick Moore just became the most fascinating storyline of this entire training camp. Here is the setup. Moore is a second-round rookie out of Michigan, a name a lot of national analysts have projected to land somewhere in the 60s or 70s on draft weekend. But Brad Holmes and this front office saw something worth trading up for, sending picks away to move up and grab him at pick 44 overall. At Michigan, Moore was one of the most productive pass rushers in the entire country, leading the Big Ten in pressure rate and racking up double-digit sacks in his senior season despite playing behind a deep rotation that limited his snap count. A power rusher with legitimate violence in a frame built around 6'3" and roughly 255 to 260 pounds, the kind of build that does not get pushed around in the trenches. He stepped into a Lions defensive front that already features a former number 2 overall pick in Aidan Hutchinson lined up on the other side. That pairing alone had fans dreaming since draft night. But nobody, and we mean nobody, expected what defensive coordinator Kelvin Shepherd is doing with him right now. Here is the thing about this week's practice. Moore was not out there for every single rep. He is still working his way back from a groin injury that cost him nearly 2 weeks of camp and forced him to miss Detroit's first preseason game entirely. By all accounts, he has only been back in full team drills for a handful of practices. That context matters, because what he did in that limited window was borderline absurd. Every single time the defense rolled into a third down pass rush package, Shepherd put Moore somewhere new, somewhere different. One rep, he is lined up in an interior alignment, the spot you would expect a stout defensive tackle to occupy. The next rep, he is outside in the alignment normally reserved for Hutchinson. Then he is rushing from a stand-up spot, hovering over the guard and tackle like he is deciding which one of them is about to have a worse day. Then he is lined up on the complete opposite end of the formation. He was everywhere. An opposing offensive coordinator watching that tape would need a whiteboard just to track where this rookie might show up next. And the results back it up. 2 sacks on the day against the first-team offense. 2, in a limited role, from a rookie working back from injury, against the starting offensive line. One of those sacks came right up the middle. The other came off the edge, where he beat rookie tackle Blake Miller clean. On a separate rep, Moore split the guard and tackle so violently that he very nearly had a third sack, only for Hutchinson to beat him to the quarterback on the exact same stunt. Think about that for a second. 2 of the most disruptive players on this entire roster were racing each other to the quarterback on the same play, and the only reason Moore did not get there first is because somebody even faster beat him to it. That is not a bad problem to have. That is an embarrassment of riches. Now let's talk about why this matters so much, because this is not just a feel-good rookie hype story. This is a philosophical shift in how Kelvin Shepherd is building this Lions defense. Remember, Shepherd was not thrilled with how his unit looked in year 1 running the show. Injuries hurt him, sure, but he also spent this offseason studying the best defenses in football, teams like Seattle and Houston, units built on disguise, versatility, and confusing the quarterback before the ball is even snapped. What we are watching right now in camp and in these preseason games is that homework paying off in real time. This is not just about deploying Derrick Moore because he is a talented rookie. This is about building a chess set, a Swiss Army knife defense where opposing quarterbacks genuinely do not know who is coming from where until it is far too late. Think about the pieces Shepherd has to work with. You have got Hutchinson, a legitimate defensive player of the year caliber talent who can rush from anywhere on the line. You have got Ahmed Hassanein, a name we have discussed on this channel before. Another player Shepherd has been deploying in unconventional ways, stunting and looping and creating chaos off the edge. You have got Tylik Williams entering year 2 in the middle, a massive presence who commands double teams and opens up exactly the kind of one-on-one opportunities that let a player like Moore feast. And now you add more into that mix as a genuine multi-position weapon, someone who can play with his hand in the dirt on the edge, slide inside, or stand up as a rush defender depending on what the situation calls for. When Moore is knifing through the middle of the line, it is not an accident. It is because Tylik Williams and whoever else is lined up next to him are creating enough chaos that the interior lanes open. When Moore beats a guard one-on-one, it is often because Shepherd has drawn up a stunt that gives him a favorable matchup by design. And this is where it gets really interesting for anyone tracking the depth chart conversation. Some of the reporting out of camp had Moore listed behind veteran free agent addition DJ 1-Num, behind another depth piece, and behind a hungry undrafted rookie making noise of his own. On paper, that made him sound like a project, a guy still finding his footing behind more established bodies. But what happened on the practice field tells a completely different story. This is not a four-string rotational piece. This is a player who, when healthy and given representatives, looks like one of the most disruptive players on the entire roster, rookie or not. The depth chart might say one thing right now, largely because of that groin injury limiting his practice time, but the tape says something else entirely, and tape does not lie. Now look, it would be a disservice to pretend this is all rainbows. On one rep, veteran offensive lineman Tate Ratledge, who has been getting extended work at center this camp, got underneath Moore and nearly put him on the ground. It was a reminder that this is still a rookie, still learning the finer points of NFL leverage and hand placement, still adjusting to grown men in the trenches who have been doing this at the highest level for years. Nobody is saying Derrick Moore is a finished product. He is not. But the flashes, even in limited snaps, even while working back from injury, are exactly the kind of thing that gets a coaching staff excited about what the ceiling looks like once he is fully healthy with a complete training camp under his belt. Let's zoom out for a second, because this story is not just about one rookie having a good practice. It connects to a much bigger picture of what Kelvin Shepherd is trying to build. The whole idea behind modern disguise-heavy defenses, the kind that carried Seattle to a dominant defensive season and the kind Houston has leaned on with its own deep pass rush rotation, is that you cannot simply out-talent the NFL anymore. Every roster has good players. Every offensive line has starters who can handle a straightforward rush. What breaks offenses down is uncertainty, not knowing who is coming from where and when, watching film all week to prepare for one look only to get shown something completely different on Sunday. Think about what that means heading into the regular season. If the Lions can roll out a front featuring Hutchinson rushing from anywhere, Hassanin bringing chaos off stunts and loops, Tylik Williams anchoring and collapsing the pocket from the interior, and now more capable of playing 3 or 4 different alignments depending on the package, opposing quarterbacks are going to have a genuine nightmare trying to identify pressure before the snap. And that matters even more when you consider the schedule ahead. The NFC North is loaded with inexperienced or first-time starting quarterbacks who are going to be facing exactly this kind of pressure. A defense that specializes in ripping up structure, sending unexpected rushes, and disguising which is which until the last possible second is precisely the kind of unit that can get inside a young quarterback's head and force the mistakes that swing football games. There is also a human element worth mentioning here. Moore was not some overnight success story. He spent years at Michigan playing through instability at the head coaching level, playing behind other talented pass rushers before finally getting his opportunity to be the guy in his final season. That patience, that willingness to trust the process, appears to be paying off again in Detroit, where he once again finds himself having to earn his role. And once again, he appears to be doing exactly that. So here is where we want to leave it with you today. Keep a very close eye on Derrick Moore this preseason. Do not be fooled by a depth chart that might currently list him behind a couple of other names, because depth charts do not always reflect what is actually happening on the practice field, especially for a rookie working his way back from an early camp injury. 2 sacks in a limited role against the first-team offense, multiple alignments in a single practice, real disruption against NFL-caliber offensive linemen. Those are not small things. Those are the kinds of signs that tend to precede a much bigger role once the games start counting for real. If you enjoyed this breakdown, drop a comment down below and let us know what you think Derrick Moore's role looks like by midseason. Do you think Kelvin Shepherd keeps expanding this package? Do you think Moore forces his way up that depth chart sooner rather than later? We want to hear your predictions, because this community is what makes this channel special. And if you have not subscribed yet, please help us hit that 500 subscriber mark. It is a small action for you, but it means the world to a channel built entirely around covering this team the right way. Smash that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe so you never miss the next update out of Allen Park. Go Lions!